The Oklahoma City Thunder defeated the Boston Celtics 118 to 112 and what could possibly be an NBA Finals preview. Both teams were at full strength. OKC was missing Jalen Williams, and Boston Celtics were missing Kristaps Porzingis. Both are very important players for both teams. Jalen Williams is an all-star, and Porzingis, when healthy, is an all-star caliber player, I would say. So both those guys were missing. But even with both of these guys missing, I felt both teams were evenly matched in this game. They had most of their top guys playing on both sides. But OKC really made a statement to Boston this game, I have to say, in the sense that they were able to come into the defending champs home court and get a win on the road. What really stood out to me was a few things. Was that Boston started this game off on fire from three-point range. They were very hot. I think they made over 50% of their first 15 or 23-point attempts, something ridiculous. And then they cooled off as the game progressed. For the game, they only shot 20 of 63 from the field, which was only 31% overall, which to me, it showed to me how amazing it was that OKC could withstand Boston's three-point barrage, because there was just several times in the game when they were hitting them with so many threes, like back-to-back threes, and that would normally break a team in half, that they would fall apart. But OKC was able to wither the runs and just hold tough and strong and not get broken by it. I think that to me is a key when playing Boston. You have to weather the storm when it comes to their three-point shooting. If you can survive a barrage of threes, then you have a good chance of winning, but very few teams are able to overcome that mentally. They just get dejected the moment Boston catches fire. But OKC, they weren't dejected at all. They kept their heads up high in this game, and they ultimately prevailed. One thing that was impressive to me was the way they were guarding the three-point line, that they were swarming, they were very quick, they were rotating fast, and most of these shots were contested, which eventually led to Boston missing threes. So you got to give them credit for that. I would also say they took Jalen Williams out of this game. He was terrible. 5 of 15 from the field, 10 points. Just awful. 0 for 5 from 3. He was pretty much non-existent in this game. He fouled out with 6 fouls in this game. I think he got most of those fouls guarding SGA. SGA is a tough player to guard. One thing I'll say about SGA, I like watching him play. He has this ability to hit these amazing trick shots, but one thing I hate about SGA's game is the way he's able to do the foul baiting. He's a master of that. It kind of reminds me of James Harden in the sense. Not as bad as Harden, but it's still pretty bad when you see the way he does the foul baiting. He's a good enough player where he doesn't have to rely on free throws to beat you. He can hit difficult shots when hit hard. Even when you hack him, he can still finish. That's one thing I do respect about him. Kind of reminds me of Ginobili-esque in the sense that, like Ginobili, he can take these hard hits and still finish. That's what impresses me about SGA, but I do not like the part where he gets these touch fouls every now and then. I think it takes away from his game. And the other thing I would say about that is that he shouldn't be relying on getting these calls, because it could affect him during the playoffs. There could be a game where the ref swallows the whistle and he's not going to get the touch fouls. So I just don't think it's a good idea ever to rely heavily on foul calls from the refs, because you never know during the playoffs if they'll call the same calls or if they'll swallow the whistle in certain situations. We have seen this use against James Harden from time to time in the playoffs, where the refs swallowed the whistles and he was pretty much useless. Not to say SGA would become useless if they swallow the whistles, because he's really good. Even when you hit him or hack him, he can still score on you. But still, it can take you out of the game mentally if you're just used to getting touch fouls. But SGA was fantastic in this game, though. 11 of 20 from the field, 34 points, 7 assists, 1 steal. Only negative about this game was he had 5 turnovers, but defensively he was pretty good in this game also. He played both ends of the court. Just another strong game for him to make an argument for the MVP. So respect to him on that. I definitely give it to him. Chet Holmgren was great in this game, 23 points, 15 rebounds. This guy is kind of not been talked about for most of the year due to the injuries he's had. I think Jalen Williams took away his shine this year by being an all-star, but when Chet is healthy, he's an all-star caliber player, and he makes them just so much more harder to beat. He adds another dimension to your team, and then you pair him with Hartenstein. Just Hartenstein came off the bench in this game, but at times when they're on the court together, they had great synergy, which is a good sign if you're an OKC fan because they could form a twin tower lineup at times when necessary. That's a positive. But I look at this OKC team, they're very deep. It's like they go 10 or 12 players deep. And it's insane when you think about how they didn't have Jalen Williams in this game and they didn't have Caruso. Caruso is a solid player. It's like these guys have like 10 or 12 guys that can play. In my mind, in my eyes, they're the deepest team in the league. I don't know how you're going to beat them during the playoffs. It's going to be very hard. Last year, I thought it was difficult too when they lost to the Mavericks. That series was close, and I felt the only reason they lost that series was due to inexperience. I think 2 or 3 of these games were decided in the final 2-3 minutes of the fourth quarter last year. They lost that game mainly due to inexperience, but SGA was big in that series despite losing. I think this year it will be harder with them having just another year of experience, but going to the Celtics, one thing I'll say is Jayson Tatum, when you look at the box scores, you would think he had a great game. 33 points, 12 of 23 from the field, 8 assists, 8 rebounds. And you're thinking like, all right, he came through in this game. But if you watch this game like I did, you will see that he didn't come through when it really mattered. There was a stretch in the fourth quarter where the game kept going back and forth between both teams, just switching lead changes several times up until a point when the game was tied 98-98. And that's when OKC just took over the game and they went on an 8-0 run and they went up 106-98. During that stretch, Jayson Tatum was nowhere to be seen. He couldn't stop the bleeding. And then he finally hit a shot to cut it down to 106-100. But by then it was too late. And that, I think when he hit that shot, it was like, I think 4 minutes and 22 seconds was left. And during that final 4 minutes, he didn't really do shit. Just he didn't come through. He missed a ton of shots. Just he disappeared like he normally disappears in these situations. And that has to be disturbing for Celtic fans. Granted, the Celtics got away with it last year with Jayson Tatum not showing up. But he might not be able to get away with it this year when he has to play a team like OKC that goes to the finals, or even possibly the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Western Conference Finals. They could be upset simply because Tatum hasn't shown to be able to come through in the really big moments in the clutch situations in the fourth quarter when it really matters. I think that has to be disturbing. But maybe the Celtics get lucky again and they're able just to overcome Jayson Tatum's choking abilities in these situations. But we'll see. Just one thing I wanted to point out about this game, but OKC is on a run, and I really wonder who's going to beat them. I'm not predicting yet they're going to win it all, but I'm really close to saying that they are. But I still got to watch a month of the regular season to see how these things play out before I make my decision of who I think is going to win it all. That's all I had to say about this game.